excuse me, it's Town Hall Building Committee, March 29th, 2023, about 8:15 p.m. Say your first name, please. Say your full name and that you are here. Josiah.
Josiah Stevenson here.
Eric.
Garrett Lubitz here.
Mark.
Mark Cameron here.
Wayne.
Wayne Sawchuk here.
Carolyn.
Carolyn Coffey here.
And Phil Lear here. Thank you. So we've got an agenda in front of us. We're going to go through that agenda, and then we'll have some discussions about directions pertaining to the decision that came about from the select board last evening. Do want to mention that select board, capital advisory, and CPC all had presentations. Mark and Gert did a fabulous job putting together PowerPoint and presenting it very well articulated. I think the presentations were taken very well, but there are different reactions from the board, different questions. I think advisory was close to 100%. They were very much interested in supporting the project. CPC was disappointing. We were looking for $4 to $6 million, and they offered $1 million. Capital has their concerns. They think it's too much money, and select board didn't want to make a decision after that initial presentation. Thank you both. Mark and Gert did fabulous job presenting. I was there for 3 of them, and I thought it was very well presented. I know there was a lot of work that went into that as well too. Update on public relations. We have put Guilfoyle PR on hold for the moment. We had hired them to do the public relations for us, but I don't know if we felt that they were responding to some of the things that we're requesting in such a short order. So Justin Scher has offered to be full-time with us if we need him. He helped us out getting some things together for the fair over the weekend. He's off in Nashville this week getting some certification. He'll be back next week, and he's got our full attention for whatever we need. So he'll be handling the PR for us. Not sure where to go next. Do we have some design updates? Steve or Phil, I have some notes here. Is that just on the maybe the stand in the front? I'm not sure what we're.
Well, we don't have any design updates for you. We wrapped it up for the most part, and it's out to bid, as you know. I got Natalie and I were both out of the office most of the day today, as was Stuart. Was a conference that we all were attending in Boston, and so I only just heard your news just a couple of hours ago.
Sure.
In thinking about it a little bit, there may be some impacts. I know, Gert, you mentioned that, well, we're pretty much ready to go. The energy code has just recently changed, and the cutoff for getting a building permit without the new code kicking in is the end of June. Wasn't going to be an issue for us, right? I don't know what the impact is going to be on this design, but the size of the building is over the limit, over 20,000 square feet. And just in thinking about it a little bit, because we got a couple other things that are in the pipeline, and we're thinking, oh yeah, we're going to need to rethink some of the kind of schematic design we did on some of those things because they're over that limit. You folks have adopted the stretch energy code, and so it's going to have an impact on you. What that really means for you, I don't know. We just haven't gone through this with anyone yet because it's so new. I don't know what the impacts will be, but it's probably going to mean more insulation. It may have an impact on our window to wall ratio on the outside of the building because, windows leak. We may end up, we'll probably end up with triple glazing, maybe more insulation on the roof. There may be It probably would be impacts to the power systems or HVAC. I don't know exactly what it will be. But it probably will take us a little time to kind of talk to the rest of the design team and figure it out.
Phil? How long does a permit last? Can a permit be pulled
That is actually,
before the end of June and be used in the fall?
yeah, your building permit, depending on your municipality, will have a sundown date on it, but lots of them are pretty long. You typically will have something like a year or two to act on your building permit before it automatically becomes void. I don't know what that timeline is in Cohasset. It may be worth asking. Of course, you'd need Commodore or somebody to to help you do that, and they'd have to agree to that.
You might be able to pull it yourself. That's been done before, but we really would have to look into that. And how it would interact with, if this gets pushed off to the next town meeting, who's still gonna be involved? You know,
Yeah, I mean, there could
we're
be.
gonna have to rebid, we're gonna I mean, you know, as far as, is Commodore still involved? You know, we're getting our trade bids on Friday. We should just continue with that. That way we have, you know, we have some numbers. We would have some numbers as of April, or, you know, for what was hopefully the May town meeting. If we just shelve the design and keep it the same, it's ultimately gonna get higher in 6 months or whatever. If we have to redesign for the new stretch code, that's gonna be an increase. I don't know if anybody's considering a complete redesign, because there was a lot of discussion about, you know, last night about what are the options. And I think, Carolyn, you hopefully you straightened that out with the select board, but I'm not sure if they're still looking for different options. They sort of listed 4 other projects up against the town hall project now. So you know, and everything was pushed off. I didn't stay for the entire meeting, but you know, where do we go at this point with the design as is, with the design modified? And the way I understand it, aren't new select board members coming on board soon? So there may have to be a
Yes,
re-education.
Probably 2.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely 2, because 2 aren't even running. They're rolling off and not rerunning, and they're the 2 that voted for putting it on a
Yes,
warrant
exactly.
last night.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe the 2 new ones are pro project too. But you know, is going to be a relearning curve, I think, for the select board potentially.
But this design is what what they gave us as a challenge, and this is our proposal. So unless they change their mind, which is certainly possible, I don't think we should change anything.
Well, and that was Mark's point last night, pretty clearly, Mark. But yeah, again, you know, the history of it was you know, Carolyn presented, and you know, it's been on the website, but you presented it, and maybe that's not an issue any longer, that they agree. But I didn't hear that, you know, they didn't really, unless they said something later on in the meeting. I didn't hear any.
I heard afterward
Any
that
kind of direction.
information had been shared before. So I don't know if,
Oh yeah.
anyway.
Okay,
So,
You gave him a reminder.
yeah, thank you.
so
So
Phil,
just,
can you hear me?
Yeah, John's on. Go
yeah,
ahead,
Yeah,
John.
can you,
just one, John, before you jump on one second, I just want to clarify does the building permit lock in the stretch code?
Yeah, it's my understanding that if you were able to pull a building permit prior to June and it would still be valid after your fall town meeting, then you'd be locked in and ready to go. You'd need sign on, obviously, from your building inspector and his or her department and the fire department would have to sign on to that as well. I don't know that they'd be as concerned about the potential, what the differences would be with the stretch code. I think it would be pretty clear what the effort here is to do. And as long as they were on board with that, I don't see that it's an issue. It may be one of those things. I've never advised anyone on this before, so it may be something that makes sense to speak to town council about, just to make sure that you're, that it's not gonna be a problem. As far as I know, it's no problem. In other words, getting a building permit is not the same as signing a contract for construction. You can't sign a contract for construction without having the money encumbered, but you've got money to pay for the pre-construction services for Commodore, for example, and they could pull a building permit, but it probably is worth checking with town council just to make sure that there's nothing that's going to hang you up and might become a problem for you later on. I've just never done this before,
Sure.
but it seems like it's possible. If it's
Okay, great.
something
Yeah,
that,
I
was
feel
up-
really, I
Steve?
feel really strange about a town building skirting its own code. That's what
From a
we're trying to
PR,
do.
from a PR
Yeah, I
standpoint,
mean,
yes,
you're,
right.
you're using a loophole and you're using a loophole right out of the gate.
yeah, I mean, the town elected to do the stretch code. We didn't have to do the stretch code, and that was done for a reason. And here, a town building is avoiding or trying to avoid it. I don't know.
Well, not trying to avoid it, but trying to avoid the change in the stretch code, which is coming up.
Trying to not
Your building
meet
is
the
still
code at the
designed-
time.
Yeah, you're
Well, it's
building.
trying to not redesign the whole building.
Sure,
Yeah,
but when I wrote to John earlier today, in my email, I said that this probably may have some legal consequences and it may have some political implications as well. I understand that that's a reality. So it's not something, like I said, that I would advise you to do willy-nilly. I think it's going to take some thought and decision-making about whether or not that's something that you are interested in doing. But
Okay,
I think I don't know exactly what the impacts will be, but it is going to have some kind of an impact and it will increase the cost.
okay, great.
That much is clear to me.
Thank you. John, you want, go ahead.
So just off of what Phil is saying, if that path of trying to file the permit, isn't what's decided, you do have the money to continue with Commodore to extend their pre-construction to then, these bids that are going to come in are useless except as a data point. So we will have to, at some point later in the summer, pre-qualify the firms, okay, to get us in line to kind of get right back to where we are and get ready to bid to go to town meeting, with a number. If we do need to redesign, if that's the what comes out of this because of that, you don't have the funds for that, and that will essentially stop us because Phil's going to have to go back to his consultants. This is going to impact, probably HVAC, maybe to some degree, but certainly architecturally, the envelope of the building, and at this point, they've been operating under a fee that's long since been, exhausted. So, there's going that will stop everything unless there's some ask for some additional dollars, but I don't know how you would do that at this time anyway, with town meeting coming so quickly. So I mean, those are in my mind are our two paths right now. Either, try to, obviously consult town council and see if Commodore would be willing, to get the permit, and then the process continues as is. But if for some reason we can't do that, and believe me, I understand the, just kind of throwing everything on the table. If we can't do that, we are in a situation where you're going to have to do some redesign that you can't fund right now with what's left on the project.
Okay,
And
great.
Can I make a comment, Phil? I just have a
Go
question.
ahead, Wayne. Yep.
In the past, in Cohasset, any work that's been done for the town like even things like the housing, the housing that we did on Sawyer Street, the town has waived the cost of the building permit. So if we went in, if someone was doing this for someone else and you went in with a $20 million project, that building permit can cost several $100,000. So there potentially is no cost to us to get the building permit. It would be a matter of a Commodore doing it sort of for us, and be willing to, to say, okay, it's going to be part of our project anyway. We can, that'll be good. And I don't know of a project that hasn't had revisions, even right from the start. You hit ledge and all of a sudden you got to revise something or whatever it happened to be. But those are things that are going to happen anyway. So my thinking would be to get the permit before the June deadline for what you have, and we're going to, just kind of, we'll have more flexibility in what we're going to go from there.
Great. Thank you. Dave, you wanted to thank you for joining us. Dave Farag is on.
Hi, David Farag, 39 Beechwood Street, and I've been helping out on the side here as a citizen because I was on the previous feasibility studies way back when, for those of you who might not know me. I just want to comment on two quick things. One, when you're talking about the code issue and potentially evading the code. Right now, the town hall, both sides, from all the feasibility studies that were done before, looking at building code analysis, electrical code analysis, plumbing analysis, is violating all of those codes and it's not hyperbole, in hundreds of areas of the code, hundreds, not one or two. The building code, electrical code, plumbing code, you name it, both buildings are violating that. And then also it's not set up ADA wise, they're not ADA compliant as well. So when you're talking about dealing with the stretch code issue, it should be talked with town council, I think. But if you could lock in the building permit, not to add more cost to the project and build what was shown, that might be a way to go. And then secondarily, for the committee, I just had a question where everything was being put off for the fall, was what about the CPC component of it? Because they voted for it. And that would go to town meeting unless that has been pitched off to the fall as well. And I haven't heard, not from anyone, it didn't come up in the discussion last night of what about that component of the funding, of if that should be gone for in the spring or if that just goes with everything else in the fall. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Yeah, the 1 million CPC funding is still on the docket to be voted for this project at this time. So that's it. Mark, do you want to
So,
talk a little bit?
I mean, there's been many discussions here, and I think we were, at least I don't want to speak for others, but I was at a point here where I thought 20 would be the upper end of the price tag here, and it had obviously exceeded that, it's hasn't been overly well received. I mean, the design has been commented and appreciated, and it's been the design itself has been well received by anyone who's looked at it. So to JRA, we thank them for that. I just wonder if it's, again, we designed this, we did what we were asked to do, we programmed it the way we intended it to be programmed prior to COVID. And, we have a great amount of meeting space because it was something that was lacking in our existing layout. And, we used to meet as a committee in person prior to COVID, and we rarely meet in person now. So one question I had here was, do we need all the meeting space that we have designed into the building? Is this something that we could redesign and look at other options? Could we look at a much different, could we look at investing money into Old Town Hall that would not be a lost sunk cost should we decide to do something to the annex side of the building and just make some progress here, because in the last 12 years, we haven't made much progress as a town. And could we just do something? Could we focus on the envelope in Old Town Hall, the auditorium space, maybe then move up to the second floor, but make a dent in this thing, do something. You know,
I chime
don't
in.
know.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no,
I
go
just,
ahead, please.
yeah, no, I just wanted to chime in on your point about, do we need all the meeting space? Is that an opportunity to sort of, shrink the footprint of the building, the programming? We tried looking at that. We looked at that a little bit in response to some of the comments that we received from capital budget. Was that 6 months ago, 12 months ago? I don't even remember at this point, where we looked at shrinking the floor plan of the building by 20%, and it really didn't shrink the budget by a corresponding amount. So I think there are some savings that potentially could be there, but I don't think it's going to be enough that really gets us to a number that's going to all of a sudden get to the point where we're like, we're back at like the $14 million figure, and everybody's going to be happy with that. My perspective on this is, I think that there's a possibility of doing some of the work, like, to basically make the old town hall, more suitable space. That clearly needs to happen. But, I think where we are right now is that if we believe that town hall should continue to exist on the common, and that we believe that we want to continue to occupy the old town hall, and that it should fit in with the historic, character of the town, then this is the best plan that we have for those needs. And the town has to make a decision. Do we value that or not? And, it's more money than any of us wanted to spend, but what are the alternatives, right? Like, do people realize that, maybe they think, well, we can shave a few $1 million here or there. We can get it down to $15 million. We can't. There is no project that gets us a town hall on the common that meets the programming needs, that fits the historic character of town hall for $15 million. It doesn't exist. And so that's what people have to decide. Do they value that or not? And if they want a building on 3A that looks like a barracks, well, we can design that. I won't be a part of that project, but we can design it. And if that's where the town wants to go, let them vote on it. But if people care about this, and I think that people do care about it, that's part of the reason why we live in a town like Cohasset. People value the common. They value the looks of the town. That's part of why we're here. It's not just about the schools. We like living on the water. We like living in a pretty town. And if people value that, then they have to show up and they have to support it. And they have to understand that it costs money. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You don't get to live in a nice town and not pay for it. I don't know. All right, off my soapbox.
Thank you, Gert. Appreciate it.
I agree with that. I was just, if you're talking about, I wouldn't change the design if we're talking about alternates, but could you do the town hall renovation and then fund that, and then do the new building, fund that later, or something that's more palatable to the town?
I mean, clearly it's not designed that way right now from a systems standpoint. So
Yeah, you wouldn't have accessibility on the second floor.
well, no, I mean, from a mechanical, electrical systems,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it wasn't designed to do one side and not the other.
Yeah.
So it would have to be reworked from a design perspective to accommodate. Because obviously we don't want to locate new equipment in the annex side if that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or is going to be torn down. I mean, ultimately, we're dealing with a charge here that we were given years ago from a select board who is a much different select board than we have now. Only one member on the current select board who is on their way out now in their last term was on the board when this charge was given to us. So, shame on the select board for not, looking at the charge along the way here and providing us with updates to say that, no, this is, we want to go in a different direction. We want something different than what was assigned 3 years ago. And instead they just let us run and then don't like it at the end when we give them the price tag.
And so that's, I think, sort of the point. I'm not sure that they do want something different, right? I think they just want this project, but they want this project to cost less. And the simple reality is that that doesn't exist. I want this project to cost less too. But like, you know, short of like rewinding the clock and going back to 6 years ago, we can't make this project cost less. And that's the reality. And so, you know, people have to make a decision. What do they value more? Is it that they value more having a building that meets the requirements they've set out, and they're going to have to pay more for it? Or do they care about the price more? I don't know. And that's where we need to socialize that. And I think that people still think that it's like, oh, well, we haven't really considered all the, I mean, we heard it last night, right? We haven't considered all the options. Well, those options were considered. And at the end of the day, people still thought that the best option was to maintain a town hall presence on the common, using the old town, having something that fits in with the character of the town. And that's what we've been that's what we've been going for. And I think if we told people that, you know, this is the only option that meets those requirements, it may actually, you know, people that may generate some support, right? If people hear that the option is like, well, if you don't vote for this project, then what it means is actually we're going to have to do something totally different. And we're going to have town hall that's going to be, you know, it's going to be over on 3A. Who knows what's going to happen to the current building? It may be just, you know, left to be neglected. And do people want that? Like, are people going to be happy looking at a dilapidated building on the common, and everybody's going to drive past and they're going to be like, why didn't we do something more with that building when we had the chance? Because you know that's what's going to happen if this project gets voted down and we relocate town hall. It's just going to sit there and it's going to decay and fall apart, and people are going to complain about it like they always do.
Dave, go ahead.
Thank you. When I hear from people that they want to look at other options, the options have been absolutely exhausted from all the feasibilities, all the research, everything that's been done in town hall, both sides. We know more about town hall than people know about their own houses, than the doctor knows about themselves after a blood test. I mean, everything has been looked at. There's nowhere on 3A for this to go. If you rent from someone else, you're introducing counterparty risk. Other towns have looked at this, like Foxborough, when they were going to build a town hall. It got stopped because they had a lot of commercial areas on Route 1, and they said we could rent there. They ended up putting it out to bid, and the 20-year lease would be more than what it was going to cost when they have to put in vaults, when they have to do all the things. It was going to cost more than doing the town hall. And then after the 20 years, guess what's going to happen? What kind of leverage do you have to move a town hall again to go to another place after your lease runs out? You are at the end of a barrel of a gun. So every single option has been looked at. It's been voted on more than once that this is the place where to keep the town hall, and it's a matter of trying to do the best you can with it. And I understand people don't like the price. They didn't like the price when it was going to be 10 million. They're not going to like it when it's going to be 20 million. And if they keep going, they're not going to like it when it's 30, because it's going to keep going up. And then finally, is that if something is not done to significantly restore and refurbish both sides of the town hall, we are going to die death by 1,000 cuts in the operating budget year after year, coming back for 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, piece by piece by piece, to do a town hall as the years go on. And it's gonna bounce out other ends of the operating budget and the capital budget, and it's gonna run into the schools. It's gonna run into the other buildings that we have in town. So with all that being said, you know, that's what needs to be socialized more to the other boards and to the town itself, that it's time to do it once and it's time to do it right, and that the building will be there for the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, and our grandkids' lives after that. But anything short of that, we're going to be in for huge price tags going in year after year after year. And you're going to see it every year at town meeting until we, you end up building it piecemeal 1% at a time. So that's it.
Thank you, Dave. Where do you want to go? John, do you have,
Well, I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
maybe one more
go
comment
ahead.
here.
Yep, go ahead.
What if we just, we've got the bids coming in, so we'll have that as the data point. And, as we've done in the past, we can take that number and we can escalate it up for future. And we can give that to the select board. We can tell them that here's the data. And, put them in the driver's seat, right? And not send ourselves through this pain and misery all over again. Let them take that number, we can use that number and we can help feed them information with it and go to get funding. And once there's funding in place, then we can resume with this process. But, we can figure out the code thing, we can figure out the permit thing. Those are details that we can figure out, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here for us to go through this over and over again, for them to only not put this in front of the voters and have it not passed by the voters and spend a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of energy to have it be rejected by whoever. So let's get the money approved first and then let's resume.
So the only issue with that, Mark, is that you don't have the ability to get the bid in hand. Like right now, if we can get this permit thing squared away, you have time for conversation with them over the next few months, to say, all right, we're coming to you with a number. Last time, all right, you've already cost yourself 2.5%, let's say, just because you have. It's had 6 months, it's half a year, and we're averaging 5%. So it's an easy math, but you've still got enough appropriation left to keep Commodore going to do that. If you don't do that, then we're going to be left kind of cart before the horse, right? So let's say if the option of waiting and getting the money first and then telling Johnson Roberts to continue, if the thought is that there's no permit in place, then you go to them in the fall with some number that's got some additional escalation so they can do the redesign, so that then we can put the job out to bid, and the potential exists to be caught behind the curve a little bit. No, the positive to this is that Commodore's been involved. They've dug some holes. They've done some destructive testing. They've been feeding additional information to Phil and Natalie. And so there have been some tweaks, some changes, so it's all good information. It's all good intel, right? So the question just becomes, do we give it one more try and put it, in the fall with a number, or do you shelve it to some degree, do the redesign, you're gonna have to go get some more money and then pick up the pen again. I think that's your fundamental question is kind of the what's next. Do you wait and see after the election and see what the constitution is of the select board and then try again? Don't know. You spent $1 million plus on a set of plans, to Garrett's thought, that's your solution to doing this on the common, unless you want to start over and redesign and see what a true all renovation looks like. Renovate the 80s, renovate the 80s mess and make it as best it can be. Probably not going to like the result, because sometimes those kind of renovations can be as expensive as building something new,
And it doesn't meet our needs.
Right, but it would placate the folks of the what if, but it's an awful lot of money to spend on a what if. And I'm sorry, the gentleman's name who I forget, who I haven't met, brings up a good point, right? You've studied the heck out of this thing already and know that that's not the viable solution that you want. So it's really, you've done what you were charged to do. and they're not pushing it any further. So is the ball in their court right now? Like we have the money to,
Definitely.
they said, do it in the fall. We can do it in the fall. We can do that. We can redo this process again, bid it again, not a problem. That is doable. The number's going to probably get worse. That's it. And can we do it with the permit thing? Obviously, we want to make sure we are, legal in doing that. So we can certainly talk to town council about that.
We also need to make,
any other,
sorry, John,
sorry, go ahead, Carol.
on that permit, I think we also need to make sure that, like, nobody thinks we're trying to pull a fast one by doing it. I mean, we need to get the buy-in from the powers that be, and so that they understand the reasoning behind it if we're going to try and pursue that.
100% agree. Yep. No one's trying to do anything funny here. I mean, Phil, that's kind of that's the question on the table. Get the bids, proceed as if we're going to try this again in the fall. And in the next few weeks, try to figure out this, permit question. Is it even an option? We'll let Commodore know to take the foot off the gas. We're going to get the filed sub bids in. And to Mark's point, we are, just to be clear, we're not going to be getting a GMP from Commodore. We're going to get data points on basically half of the bid. We had an estimate from them, and we will get those 16 trade bids and get a feel for, okay, on the 40 to 50% of the bid estimate that was trade bids, how did the actual numbers in the marketplace come out? So that'll be good to be able to inform kind of where that number they gave us, where are we on it? Are we up? Are we down? Or are we, right on target? But we're not going to get the rest of the number because, at that point, that's another 20 or so bids, 30 or so bids that they're trying to get from other trades that we're not bidding it. So not, we can't stop that process. I don't think it's not fair to keep that process going for a job that's not going to be awarded in May. But let's let the bids go the rest of the week, at least for the trade bidders, and then see where we are, and ask the questions about the permit, and maybe reconvene in a few weeks and see the data that we have, share that. We can I can talk to Michelle and talk to town council about the permit. We can share that info, go from there.
Phil O'Brien, can you tell us at some point what it means with the new code? I mean, it might mean very little, or it might mean a higher R value of a wall or something like that, which.
That's true. And we can. It's going to take a little bit of study. I don't know offhand what the impacts are going to be, but we can look into it a little bit and try to report back to you what we think it's going to take. I'm sure there's going to need to be some engineering done in order to make the final determination, but we can at least get our arms around what we think the potential impacts are going to be.
Okay. Because I'm just not I'm not in favor of just skirting the code, regardless of how it's spun. I just don't think the town should do it. So, and we've gone through code changes and they've been minor. So maybe this is something that won't affect it too much. Who knows? We should just know that.
How do we feel about taking a step back here and putting the select board on the spot here to make a decision? I mean, they have, to David's point, they have all the data points here. We're going to give them another data point here with this upcoming number, right? Why are we going to continue to run through flaming hoops here, only to speculate on what they want to see? Let them tell us what they want to see. They haven't told us anything.
I don't think the problem is with us. I think the problem is that there are a number of other capital projects, and they think that the town needs to understand what else is going to be needing funding or requesting funding in the future before they vote on this project, on a $20 million project. And so I don't think that there's really anything we can do. They need to be collecting all that information and figuring out how or if there's going to be a big group package and everything else. I think that's why Jack wanted to delay the vote, because he wanted to hear from the school facilities people last night. But, you know, I don't really feel like there's anything that we can do right now other than wait for direction.
Yeah.
And come up with a plan for selling the project to the town. You know, in the event that they want to go forward, we're going to need to be ready to educate people as to all the work that's been done and why the decisions were made, and you know, all the things that David so eloquently said earlier, and Gert, and you know, like everybody has been saying, but we need to be able to convey that in a logical and you know, ability to be well received for somebody who hasn't been involved for the last 5 years or 15 years, like David.
Yeah, Carolyn, I think maybe though, to Mark's point, it may be beneficial to ask the select board to reaffirm the charge for this committee. I know that they haven't made any changes to it, but you know, before we go ahead, and you know, my perspective is that we should be all in on the fall, and that's what it is. Like, you know, that's now the pole that's been planted, and we now have, if we can actually, we need to view that as like, that's the date. Like, we've pushed this off a few times, and you know, there have been some reasons for doing that, but I think that, like, you know, at this point, like, this is the last shot, right? And we have to view it as the last shot. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and somebody's going to have to start over. But I think that in order to do that, like, you know, and make sure that we're not spinning our wheels and wasting our time for the next 6 months, do we feel like, you know, we need to get some sort of a commitment from the select board that they still, you know, support the mandate that we were given when this committee was formed? And, you know, what do they need to be able to say that they do? Because if not, we're going to find ourselves in probably the same situation in September, where Paul Green is going to ask, well, where are those plans that are in the drawer? You know, did you bring those plans? Like, you know, have we thought about doing it in these places? You know, what about the land behind the red line? You know, like, yeah, you can keep just coming up with more and more, you know, questions whenever you go through this process. But what we really need is some sort of a vote of support from them, right? And so if we can get to a point, and you know, we get to that point in September or August, and we now have the project and all the questions have been answered, and we said you supported it back in April, or said that you still wanted this project, you know, in the way that it's been addressed, you know, what's changed? You know, make them give us a vote of confidence, right? Otherwise, it just, I don't know, feels like we're just gonna, you know, they could pull the rug out from us at any time if we don't have some sort of a vote of confidence. And I don't think any of us feel like just, you know, wasting our time anymore, if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree that they need to reaffirm. I mean, it should have happened months ago. And you know, I mean, to Garrett's points on the other options, I mean, the last two select board meetings here on the agenda clearly states an executive session to discuss real estate acquisitions. So they're obviously talking about something in executive session here. We've seen the polls on Facebook here about buying the Roy estate, the Cox estate. So we don't know what they're doing, right? But their supposed board of transparency here is sending us on a wild goose chase. And you know what? It's tiring some of us out, right? And it's also costing the taxpayers money, because we're spending money right now doing this. Our consultants are on here, right? We're spending money. And they don't realize that we're spending money every time we do this. And the more times they have us do it, the more, I mean.
So to make that happen, What would you propose? That Phil reach out to Jack and say, put us on the agenda? We want you guys to reaffirm
Yes,
next week?
yes.
What do you think about that, Phil?
Happy to do whatever we need.
I'll go so far to say is I will resign if they don't support. So anybody is free to join me, but I'm not gonna stick around on a committee that doesn't have the support of the board that chartered the committee in the first place, so.
The other option is we can all just resign and really leave them in a good spot.
Yep,
It has crossed my mind.
No, crossed my mind. I mean, we are. It's not even respectful. I mean, it's just to the point of being decent and respectful. It's not respectful of our time.
Okay, we can do that. We're looking for, I think Jack indicated that he wanted to get could get a positive vote. Is there a meeting next week? Have they got one scheduled for Tuesday night?
There is one.
Okay. I'll reach out to Jack and ask him for a reaffirmation of our project as presented and for this committee to move forward.
Well, at a minimum,
I
think
have
that
to
the
leave, but I
charge-
just want to thank everybody for their time and efforts. So
Thank you,
I
David.
thank you,
didn't- I
David.
didn't-
You're not even, you're not even
Yes.
officially part of the committee.
I know I
You
didn't want
don't
to
have
just
be
cut
here.
out and blip out, but thank you all. I'll let you
Thanks,
go here.
David.
Thanks,
Thanks,
David.
Dave.
I mean, at a minimum, the charge needs to be updated.
Yeah,
because
it's
Clearly,
the
we're not
charge.
checking
Yeah.
the last box on the charge, which is a net neutral result. So at a minimum, the charge needs to be updated.
Right. Because they clearly don't want to do it within the operating budget.
Not
And if
feasible.
they can't give us a straight answer, then we stop. If they wanna kick the tires on some other real estate, let them kick the tires, but we're stopping. We're not gonna run around trying to make them happy and have them have their little secret missions behind us. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's fine. We lost John. Did John resign?
Yeah, John resigned.
We've got a lot of soapboxes to go around, Marks.
No. Happy to do that. What else? I guess John mentioned the bidding update. That was the other thing we had on the agenda. Design updates, we didn't have any. Public relations, we mentioned that.
Would it be, Phil,
Yes,
Phil and Natalie, would it be possible to get a set of the drawings sent over? I don't think, did we ever get we had the previous set.
Yeah, anybody could download them for free from Project Dog.
Can you send us the link?
Sure, projectdog.com.
And it's a project number. I can look up the project number for you.
It should be right on their front page.
Yeah, there's a
we're happy to
code
send-
number on it.
Could somebody distribute that to the committee?
send it to me and I'll have it, or Michelle, and we'll send it out.
Yeah, I don't have it handy, sorry.
And Wayne mentioned the other night in the meeting that, or last night's meeting, that the generator has to be diesel, it can't be natural gas. Is that true?
I don't know that.
That's true, according to the people that I know in the generator business now, which surprised me.
That's something, it's not one of those things that we specify ourselves, and so I'd have to ask. I don't know.
Would
I don't
would
know
that
whether-
maybe been controlled by what gas was available in the street?
Yeah.
That's probably a GGD question.
Well, there's gas there because the building has gas, right? I mean, I
Right,
don't-
but the amount of gas.
Yeah, I don't know the
it takes a lot.
capacity and the line sizes there.
Right.
What it needs, but
The sad thing is that one of the selectmen there on the left-hand side felt like he was giving us all this negative stuff that he probably never gave us anything since he's been a selectman. That's, in other words, it almost got, it was a, it was just very poorly done, in my opinion.
Well, he's been openly against this project since before he was a selectman.
Oh, really? Okay,
Mhm,
I didn't
On
know.
social media.
mhm.
And what, when you come down to it, what is he really against? You know, the design, the need, the, you know,
The tax increase.
cost, or what? Because I'm afraid that if you go to town meeting and stuff and the selectmen's, you know, pick someone that's for it and he stands up and talks against it, it's just,
Well, that's fine, but that's why I think it's important that we get an affirmation of the charge, because
but
You know.
shouldn't he come in and attend a meeting and say, these are my problems with what you're doing?
he should, absolutely, 100% he should.
Okay, anything else? All right, I'll reach out to Jack. I'm looking for a reaffirmation for us, looking at change of, what am I looking for? Oh, change on the,
Charge, reaffirmation of the charge.
the last part of the charge, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think what we're looking for is a vote that they support this project. Like, you know, they would vote for spending $22 million on this project, right? We're looking for a vote that they support the charge that was given to us to design, you know, that they still support a project on the common, that they still support a renovation of the historic structure, that they still support, you know, keeping, you know, building a building that's in keeping with the other buildings on the common. I think that's what we're looking for, right? Not a vote that says we support this project and recommend it to the town of Cohasset. Because I think those are slightly, I mean, they're similar, I mean, given where we are, but they are different.
Yeah, the charge is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the charge. Okay, good, great, thank you. Anything else? I think if we're good,
Motion to adjourn.
yeah, do we have a date on the calendar, Michelle, for our next meeting, or do we wait to see what happens at the select board?
I think you wait to see what happens,
Okay, thank you.
unless you feel differently.
How
No,
about June?
I'll see you all on May 1st.
yeah. All right, someone make a motion?
Motion to
I
adjourn.
motion we adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your time.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Night,
Thank
everybody.
you all. Thank you.
Thank you.